Hey, what's up guys? Gons here for the Face Like the Sun YouTube channel. I wanted to talk about IBM and Watson, only because I've seen a lot of their ads rolling on different videos and things across the internet, and it's nothing new in terms of its plan, its goals, and what it's projecting, but I think it's important for us to discuss here in a short video just because I think a lot of business leaders and analyticists and stuff like that are already using the capabilities of Watson, and I think this interactive communicative technology has some deep implications in the prophetic sense. So I wanted to address some of the commercials that I've seen rolling on different videos and stuff. In particular, the one about NASA and the whole Apollo mission and the music on the dark side of the moon. To watch any of those videos, at least on CNN, I had to sit through the Watson ads. And so I was a little bit shocked at a couple of the commercials, and in particular, one of them. And I'll show you what goes on here in a minute. But let me give you a brief history of Thomas J. Watson, the founder of IBM. He was an American businessman. He served as CEO of IBM International Business Machines, is what it stands for. And what most people don't realize is his hand in the Nazi Holocaust and even getting a Medal of Service to the Reich. And what the history books don't really tell us is that Watson was responsible for helping the Holocaust in terms of the number system for the Jews that were sent to the camps. And IBM has never been punished for assisting the Reich in any way, probably because we're in the Fourth Reich now without really even realizing it. But that's the history, just a brief history. There's lots of articles and even books written on this subject, and I'll link to a couple of them in the description section. But IBM is big time. They're big in business, computing, everything else. So when you watch this commercial, be cognizant of what is happening. Let me show you this commercial real quick.
I am a technological breakthrough.
This morning, I read over 4,000 articles on leukemia in less than a second.
たった数週間で新しい言葉も話せるように。
Thousands of new laws were published yesterday, and I'm up to speed on all of them.
I know every detail of every public quarterly report in the last 20 years.
I can spot diseases before a patient displays a single symptom.
I can understand euphemisms, idiosyncrasies, and complex metaphors.
I can tell what's going to set up before it ever trends online.
I can forecast the weather in over 2.2 million locations at the same time!
I can grow with you.
I can coach you.
Enrich you.
Enlighten you.
And I'm just getting warmed up.
Hello, my name is Watson. Together, we can outthink the limits of what's possible. Welcome to the cognitive era.
Okay, so welcome to the cognitive era. Now, what's very creepy about this commercial is that all those people, those experts and everything that were, saying, I can do this, I can do that, basically that was Watson speaking through the people. And I'm sure somebody else has made, a Watson exposed video or something like that. But I found this commercial so disturbing on many levels because it's like, okay, they're outright saying that humanity will basically become the pawns of Watson in this cognitive era. What they're trying to do is create this global brain. And I think there is some major prophetic significance to this. Now, the first passage I'll bring up is Daniel 2, verse 43. And I know some people have looked at this and said, well, this isn't talking about anything prophetic. It's not talking about fallen angels mixing with humans. It's something that was fulfilled in Rome. Here's what it says. And where thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. And, the traditional sort of interpretation here is that we have iron as the kingdom of Rome and the elite royalty mixing with the so-called commoners of the day, which is described as seed of men. And the interpretation is well noted. It's a very good interpretation. I think it's solid and it's logical. But could that note in history also simply be a prototype, a foreshadow of something later that was going to happen, which we're living in today, where the events of the time of Rome provided us with a roadmap or foundation to help us understand what and why things are happening in our day now? But the contrast of iron and clay, where clay is described as the seed of men, it really is interesting. It's really fascinating to consider that this might be a cyclical thing where the blueprint that we saw with the royal elite mixing and mingling with the commoners, maybe that sort of thing is going to happen again in our day. But the mixing of the elite today, well, the elite are going to be all enhanced and they're going to be transhuman. They're going to try to merge themselves with animals and machines and all this stuff. And as they, procreate, so to speak, with commoners, humans, the rest of the population, they will not cleave to one another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. And so I take a wider approach here. I'm not saying that I know for a fact that this is what's going on in this passage, but I will say that the interpretations about Rome given this passage actually, I think, work very well in the cyclical nature of prophecy and as a blueprint or as a foreshadow, a partial fulfillment even of what we might see in our time. So I want everyone to kind of go to Daniel 2 and study that verse. And there are good studies that you can do on the book of Daniel in general. So I'll leave a couple of those in the description section as well. And of course, I can't really talk about this whole idea of Watson and the cognitive era without really mentioning the mark of the beast and the image of the beast system. And of course, if we go to Revelation 13, it's there. I've talked about it so many times, but it's worth mentioning over and over again because I think it's right in front of us. And really the key here is a couple things. The second beast performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in front of people. And by the signs that it is allowed to work in the presence of the beast, it deceives those who dwell on earth, telling them to make an image for the beast that was wounded by the sword yet lived. And it was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast might even speak and might cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be slain. And that's really the main passage there. Now, these other things haven't fully been fulfilled yet. If the false prophet is here, he has not been revealed publicly anyway, in any sense. And we will know because he will make fire come down from heaven in front of people. But it's interesting that as soon as that happens, we see there's a lot of moving parts here. Obviously, the mortal head wound of the first beast being resurrected in some way, and then an image being built to that first beast. And some people, allegorize it to say that the beast is Rome, or the beast is, the whole kingdom system. Others see it as an individual, the Antichrist figure, which I tend to lean towards, but I think it's both. I think it's both the kingdom and the individual Antichrist. I don't dismiss the Rome idea. I think there's some validity there, obviously, but I don't tie myself down to any one interpretation because I think it's loose. Prophetic things are loose. We don't know exactly how God is going to fulfill these prophecies, but we can have a good understanding of the various interpretations that have come throughout the ages so that when it does happen, we will know. And the part where it says it's allowed to give breath to the image of the beast and that it might speak. Well, interestingly, Watson already speaks. There's another commercial that says Watson recognizes people now with their facial recognition software, but then might cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be slain. This is the next part here, the part that is interesting. If you don't tie into something like a Watson, now, I'm not saying Watson is the image of the beast, but it's certainly, again, some sort of prototypical motif of the image of the beast, I think, eventually when it does arrive. So what we're seeing in this transhumanist era is this move towards a global brain, which is what Watson is promoting with this cognitive era thing. And if the pattern of Thomas J. Watson holds, then this system can be used in a very similar way that the Nazis used Watson's technology back in the Holocaust. So that's why this is eerie, to say the least, that Watson was involved with the Holocaust, with the Third Reich, and that, even that can be perhaps a prototype or some sort of partial fulfillment or a cyclical fulfillment of what will ultimately become the full fulfillment when things happen in the end times here. So again, always hold on to the word, hold on to Jesus Christ, because he is the way, the truth, and the life. He is the one that will put an end to this. And in many ways, those of us who are born again in Jesus Christ are already free from this because we were born again in the Spirit and our souls are saved forever. And in Matthew 10:28, where it says, "And do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell." And that fear is a reverence, not so much a fear of, being scared. And this is about God. God is the one that can destroy our soul in hell if he chooses to. But those who try to kill our bodies, we have no reason to fear them because our souls are saved in Christ. And for those of us believers, we are filled with the Holy Spirit. We are a new creation. We have a renewing of the mind. And, we are going to have to be the resistance here in the coming years, months, And I don't mean that in the violent sense whatsoever, and I don't mean that in the pacifist sense either. I mean that in the intellectual sense, in the mind sense, in the spiritual battle sense. You know, we are going to face lots of spiritual battles, and things that happen in the natural happen in the supernatural first, right? The spiritual realm is the foundation of the natural realm. So we need to fight our battles in the spirit because we wrestle not against flesh and blood. And so be in the Word, stay vigilant, stay sober-minded, and stay watchful. Hope you guys have an awesome day. God bless.